Hi, Achim InnerSpace Explorers. Today we talk about single tanks with double valves. So I got a message and Thomas sent me a mail and said, can you please make a video about single tanks with double valves? Good versus bad, if or if not, and what's the best config? So if or if not, not. Thanks for watching, goodbye. No, nonsense. The big question is always, why would you want to do that? And of course, my view on it is probably very much based on my technical diving background. And therefore, the simple question, for me, I don't use them. So actually, I had to look quite a bit in the basement to find something that I can put on that tank just for the video. The reason why I don't use them is that if I do a dive where I feel I want the redundancy of two separatable regulators, so the possibility to shut one side off and use the second one to access all my gas, which I have in my doubles, then I simply use doubles. But of course, they are there, I can use them. So if you're a single tank diver, if you're not into technical diving, and you come to the point where you want to use this kind of configuration, obviously this is probably the way to go. And or better, let's have a look if or if not. For me, I don't really see the big benefit. For example, here in Germany we have quite a few lakes where it's mandatory to follow a couple of rules, which is don't dive alone, like from a legal perspective, and if you enter the water you have to have two independent first stages. Now obviously you can discuss if this is reasonable or not. In my opinion it's not, because when you so if you look at accidents in the past, then normally the reason for the accident is human error. Diving beyond the limits, diving with the wrong configuration, diving with the wrong gas. I mean, all the things that we probably talked about before. But it's very rarely an issue with the gear itself. So these times where you can buy the bad regulator that free flows and ices up, etc. This is basically not the case anymore. So if you have a freezing regulator, then it's usually not the fault of the regulator. It's not because it's a bad regulator. The reason the regulator freezes is because you get water or moisture in it. So either you have moisture in the tank because there's something wrong with the filling, or you've been breathing from the regulator outside of the water while it was very, very cold, so you get condensation, and then with the cold that forms by the expansion of the gas, you get a freezing second stage, stuff like that. But the regulator itself doesn't freeze. And I ran through this discussion 100 times because people always see me diving cold water with my screwable regulators and think, you're diving a piston first stage, how can you do this? This is dangerous. It's not dangerous. It's just use proper gas and follow certain procedures. And I can actually not remember a frozen regulator in the past 25 years or something. So the next thing is, if I dive single tank, I obviously have to follow certain limitations regarding depth and duration of the dive. So in my personal opinion, if I follow all the rules of proper diving and I dive in a single tank and I stick within my limits, why would I need two first stages? Of course, theoretically I can turn one off and breathe from the other one and all of this, but there's still a buddy, there's still a partner system, and I'm still in a very, very reasonable depth in case an issue comes up, so if you are ISE trained or anything else, but I mean, if I mean, talking about ISE or talking about our philosophy, if I have a reasonable gas planning, talking about minimum gas, even if I have a free flow, it's not an issue. I mean, it's nothing that endangers me. And then on top of that, how many people out there are able to then indeed reach the valve and close their valve? In my experience, only a very small portion. And I mean, we see this when we start technical training, and where the reaching of the valve and turning the valve and all these procedures are mandatory. There's so many issues in the beginning, and most of these people are already experienced divers. So, but obviously, if they would have been in the water with a single tank, with independent valves before, they wouldn't have been able to reach back and turn off the valve and control the left one, because on a set of doubles, it's obviously way simpler because the manifold's further outside, so it's way easier to grab than if I have to go further in. So the entire concept, in my opinion, is very, very questionable. If it is mandatory, well, again, this is a 15-liter tank, for example, which I always found very, very uncomfortable to dive with. So if I would live in an area where 2 independent first stages are mandatory, and I dive on a recreational level, I would probably buy myself a double 7 instead of a single 15, and take full advantage of the system with a manifold that I can I can isolate, and where I can probably reach my knobs, and the first stages are further apart. Another big issue I have with this concept is that if you want to use it to prevent regulators or to be redundant in case of an I-stop regulator, if you have a real issue like moisture in the tank and your first stage freezes, here the second stage is so close to the other one that normally it ices up as well, because the extreme cold that forms there, and if you ever seen a first stage that ices up, it gets like a really big ice ball. Then normally the second one ices up in a very, very short time after that, so you don't win anything. So on a set of doubles where you have the first stages more separate, this is better. I mean, if you have wet gas in the tank, you have an issue anyway. But as everybody talks about this icing up, and this is so dangerous, and you need to be redundant, blah 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 blah, then a set of double makes way more sense than this. That doesn't really answer the question from Thomas regarding our best configuration, what to use. If you use, just to answer the question, if you want to use a single tank and you want to use one with dual outlets, then at least take care that the knobs point outside. So if you reach back, you can manipulate them like you would do on a manifold. Don't use one where the second outlet sticks up or backwards, or I've seen all kind of weird things. I will include a couple of pictures in the video right now where you can see what I consider to be good and what I consider to be bad. So on this one, for example, the second stages are very close together, and actually the hoses start to interfere a little bit. But that was the only thing that I had flying around at the moment, just to talk about the concept. And I'm actually not diving this. It's an empty tank. I just put a valve on it to show you. So normally this part here is not there. Yeah, I hope that answers a little bit the question and gives you an idea of the philosophy behind. If you have questions or comments, please use the comment section. Also check out the Patreon site. That's where we usually discuss more in depth and detail. And yeah, if you like it, give us a thumbs up. Appreciate that. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. And if you have questions, if you have topics that you would like to see covered, please drop us a message. We're always keen on new content that we can create, and I really appreciate that. So thanks to Thomas for this one. See you next time.